Milepost 3, Choosing to be Led, the Gateway of Obedience and the Gateway of Humility. I look back now and I can easily see the problem. I was way too committed to building someone else's dream. But in the moment, I only saw that my commitment was not appreciated. After being fired, for the first time in my life, I resisted finding a new job. I was so brutally beaten that I couldn't bear the thought of getting back out there just to be beaten down again. I didn't know what I was doing wrong, so I couldn't fix it. My heart wasn't in it anymore. When I did find a position, it was in shipping as before, mostly working by myself. I took on all the jobs that were distasteful to everyone else. I cleaned the bathrooms. I emptied the trash. I took the abuse of disgruntled customers. An honest job, sure, but well beneath my true potential. I no longer claimed ownership. I no longer threw my heart into my work. I punched a time clock. I went to work for the money, not to change the world. If I wasn't punching the time clock, I was being a dutiful wife and mom. I became compliant. My independent spirit was broken. I had a smile on my face, but my soul was dying. Many times, the urge to cry overcame me, and I retreated to my bedroom to bury my face in a pillow and allow the sobs to escape. I was baffled by the need to cry. I have a good husband, a nice home, great kids, a job. What more could I want? As I write this, it is difficult to comprehend how I could have allowed my professional life to become so mundane, devoid of meaning or purpose. I soon found out there was a part of me that was still willing to fight. That part of me would not tolerate the life I had settled for. I had arrived at work as usual and printed off the orders for the snowmobile parts that would be shipped that day. This particular morning, I was working alone. After pulling the items from the warehouse and boxing them up, I experienced a strange pain in my left arm. I continued with my duties in the warehouse until the pain radiated up the left side of my neck, and I felt a tightness in the center of my sternum. I went to my boss and told her I wasn't feeling well and that I was going home. By the time I arrived home, the feeling in my chest had intensified. My husband drove me to the hospital. Minutes seemed like hours, and fear crept in as the pain increased. It was my heart. There was something wrong with my heart. I couldn't understand how everyone could be so calm and unhurried as I waited in the emergency room. I was frightened and confused. From the look on my husband's face, he was too. I wanted to scream, "Do you not see that I'm having a heart attack?" Milepost 3, Gateway 5, the Gateway of Obedience. Counterfeit. Obedience meant dependence, a loss of control, giving up my gift of choice. I became reliant on another mortal being successful in order for me to be successful. Obedience felt like bondage. I punched a time clock and had to do what my boss said as long as I was on the clock. My mantra became, "Tell me what to do and I will do it." Not because I want to help you be successful, but because I want you to see me doing a good job to prove that I have worth. I'm obedient so I can keep my job and not get in trouble. I'm a slave to my circumstance. Truth. Obedience is freedom. I can let go of having to do it all because I can trust my intuition and the inspired shortcuts I receive from God. When I'm obedient to the laws of creation, I complete my goals in record time. My assessment. The result of living according to the counterfeit of obedience is that rather than throwing my heart into the adventure of something bigger, I close and lock the door on my heart. I'm alone and isolated. There is no one I can connect with or confide in. I have to do it all myself in order to protect myself from being disappointed by others. Taking full ownership and sole responsibility for my own successful outcome is purely arrogant. Pride becomes conceit when I have made the decision that there is no one I can trust. Time and energy shrink in relation to the task because I am the only one who can make decisions. Time is used up in distractions that don't even belong to me. Not only am I giving away my most precious resources, time and energy, to issues that are not my specialty, I am preventing others from doing their specialties, robbing them of joy and abundance. I create imbalance within the universal laws and policies that govern relationships and abundance. Envision a teeter-totter. There must be equal weight on both sides to maintain a healthy balance. The universe must always restore balance. There is an opposition present in all things within our world for the purpose of everything continuing to flow in harmony with everything else. Just as there are positive and negative forces that enable me to push off a stationary object, the floor or the side of a swimming pool, there are positive and negative forces pushing against the Earth to keep it in its proper orbit and rotation. It is absolutely necessary for there to be opposition, equal pull to equal push. To truly live in harmony with the universal laws of physics, I need to use negative forces to my advantage instead of wishing them away. The answer to lightening my burden and taking away all the stress is to take responsibility and ownership of only my part. In order to do this, I need to do two things. Number one, recognize my part. I need to know what my gift is and only do that. If I insert myself too heavily where I don't belong or where I don't fit, it is a heavy burden for me to bear. Indeed, it is such a heavy burden that an equally heavy burden must be placed on the other side to compensate. Conversely, if one side is light as a feather, the other side gets to lighten up as well. Thus, if I work only in my gift, which is the easiest and lightest thing in the world for me to do, the universe must respond by lightening my burden all around me. Number two, I need to figure out what I'm creating. I need to know the ultimate end result I desire. I may be supporting someone else's creation with my gift, but there must be a specific end result for me, or I am overstepping and inserting myself where I don't belong as the owner of their creation. Entering the gateway of obedience. All of the gateways up to this point, the gateway of faith, the gateway of abundance, the gateway of charity, and the gateway of prosperity, flowed to me naturally. I didn't specifically seek them out. They came to me as I went searching for my next steps and my most limiting beliefs every morning. The gateway of obedience was different. We'll talk later about what and whom we should obey, but first I want to talk about how this gateway of obedience came to me in a unique way. You will see, as I did, that this gateway is the turning point in arriving aligned. The first four gateways that we've discussed have been for everyone who seeks for a better life for themselves. From this point forward, we are in new territory. The remaining gateways require a conscious choice to actively seek, discover, and initiate action. We have the choice to build a permanent home in our prosperity community and create a new comfort zone. Or we can choose to continue growing towards ultimate integrity and influence as inspiration guides us. By the time I reached prosperity, my morning process had become predictably positive. I was open to learning whatever God or the universe had in mind for me to learn that day. I had never considered this way of learning before. Of course, I had always prayed and read good books to seek out answers. I go to church every week, and I consider myself a spiritual person. But this education was different than anything I had ever experienced. I was developing a personal relationship with God as I asked for answers and received them through an inner knowing. As I followed the inspired shortcuts I was given day after day, I witnessed my life beginning to change in positive ways and my emotions both raising in vibration and helping to cradle me in peace, where I began to trust my heart. Through much of my journey up to this point, I had felt somewhat alone on my path. I did not perceive others who had supported me until I passed through the gateway of charity. Through the eyes of charity, I saw that others were already playing a role in helping me at the same time I was helping them. When I took that audacious leap into prosperity and turned around to see all those who were helpless without me, I felt a longing to help them cross the chasm to enjoy prosperity with me. It was then that my journey became a journey of many rather than a journey of one. Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid demands that we take care of our own survival first before we can help others. Humans have an innate desire to serve and uplift. If we attempt this too soon, however, we fall down to the base of Maslow's pyramid where our psychological needs and physical survival rob us of the ability to positively influence those we want to serve. I may really want to donate to a worthy cause, but if I can't put food on the table for my own family, the money given can become a burden rather than a source of joy and freedom. After arriving in prosperity, I had found a place I could breathe without having to worry about the next dollar, the next free moment, the next breath. I began to feel some of that joy and freedom that had only eluded me before. There was a certain sense of exhilaration with celebrating how far I had come, and there was a definite feeling of satisfaction that I could remain there and be comfortable with my well-earned peace. I was content and grateful in the state of freedom and joy. It was great to be celebrating, but soon I felt a compelling urge to break a new trail. I knew there was more to discover. My journey was not at its end. My persona had transitioned to that of leader and guide. I felt more confident in helping others to attain what they desired. I had even been instrumental in helping some find freedom as I had. But I knew there was a level of freedom that I had not tasted, and the desire to lead people to a better place began to fill me. I realized that the path being revealed to me was inspired and for more than just me. Although the next gateway was uncharted territory, I felt it was mine to explore and create the map for others to follow. This was when I started deliberately seeking change and the next gateway. I began asking for new wisdom in my morning GPS, asking questions like, "What do you have for me today?" I felt driven to discover what my next gateway would be as quickly as possible. I kept asking questions and trusting that the answers I received would uncover the next gateway in my journey. I saw the hints of my next leap several days before it became completely clear. I knew the next lesson I would be learning was obedience, but the full understanding of how that would look and feel wasn't initially made manifest. Here is an entry from my journal on one of those days as I actively sought the next gateway. The next quantum leap feels very near. I have been guided to several scriptures about obedience. Manifesting intentions on my vision board is a measure of how quickly I obey inspiration I receive. I feel that the next quantum leap is obedience. I have the tools. I am in the right place. I have learned the lessons. I'm open to receive. My will is non-existent with regard to the how. My will only comes into play with how quickly I obey. I noticed that in this gateway of obedience, my motivation seemed more altruistic than before. I pursued the lessons of obedience out of a sense of gratitude and love for those who would come after me. This dispelled the fear that had been present with the first gateway, the gateway of faith. Instead of leaping away from a comfort zone that felt wrong, I was leaping towards the unknown, and it felt right. It was no longer a choice between good and bad, but a choice between good and better. Fear took a back seat because I had the wisdom of experience and confidence. I now believed I was up to the challenge. I had more tools in my toolbox, and I trusted the skills I had acquired. More than anything, I trusted that whatever I lacked would be revealed to me at precisely the moment I needed it. And the underlying motivation of it all became not who I would be or what I would do after this next gateway. It became more about the people I would bless by obeying the desire for more. I began to see that the choice to leave a good life in search of a better one is reserved for those who ultimately transition from mortal to legendary. Mortal, of course, is who we all are on a normal daily basis. Legendary is reserved for those who reach the ultimate distinction of leaving a lasting legacy. These become unforgettable. Essentially, they become immortal and invincible because their legend lives on long after their physical bodies have ceased to exist among mortals. Of course, this may or may not necessarily imply notoriety, fame, and stature. It means they have become unforgettable to those within their reach of influence, those for whom they were instrumental in building bridges and blazing trails. If you are committed to continuing on beyond your own place of prosperity, buckle up. I found obedience to be the first gateway where I was tested consistently, even daily. Perhaps a better way to explain would be that I was provided with many opportunities to practice obedience until I successfully made it through the gateway. Most people get stuck in the gateway of prosperity and never experience the freedom the gateway of obedience offers because prosperity represents a physical goal. They set up camp or even build a big house because they are basking in the success of achievement. Physical comfort feels good. They ignore or rationalize away those twinges of longing for a new adventure that is bigger than themselves. They procrastinate the desire to reach that pinnacle state where they no longer must focus on themselves, where they can contribute and serve simply because they choose to. They are already successful and are living a good life. It is enough. Their place of prosperity becomes a comfort zone that holds them back from ever experiencing what it feels like to be motivated by love. If, however, we can move when we feel there is something more, even in the midst of success, we never have to be motivated by fear again. The gateway of obedience is the portal to self-actualization on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Obedience takes us beyond physical self-fulfillment to a legacy of immeasurable contribution. If we hold on to the comfort zone too long, we must begin again at square one. We are creatures that require growth, so eventually we will become dissatisfied with what we have, and we will know it is time to move on. If our success has become a comfort zone where we are now afraid of remaining the same, we can always go back to the beginning and take that leap of faith again, followed by abundance, then charity, then arriving in a new place of prosperity. It feels like progress, but unless we can let go of our prosperity in the middle of feeling comfortable, we will never move beyond the gateway of prosperity. As we've discussed before, each gateway is a necessary precedent to the next. The same is very true for moving from the gateway of prosperity to the gateway of obedience. We absolutely have to feel the gratitude of prosperity to be open to the sacrifice of obedience. I have many times used the analogy of summiting mountain peaks to describe the feeling of finally understanding and embracing the principles within each gateway. At the summit, I've always been able to see beyond the mountain I'm standing on to the next mountain. There is always more to learn. As I moved from one gateway to the next, I felt the excitement and thrill of reaching the summit. With the gateway of obedience, it felt that from one day to the next was like reaching the peak of a mountain, only to discover the presence of the next mountain range, even more formidable and enticing than the last. After the gateway of prosperity, the gateway of obedience was certainly a much higher, seemingly unattainable peak with smaller summits along the way. I initially struggled with obedience. It wasn't until I more fully understood it that I learned to embrace it, and then everything changed for me. What or whom should I obey? The word obedience can be packed with a lot of emotional baggage. It portends that one is subject to the will of another person. It is submitting in some way to the will of a higher authority, whether that authority is government, a parent, or God. For these reasons, many tend to bristle a little at the concept of obedience. The counterfeit of obedience is that it is limiting. The truth of obedience is that it frees you to stop striving and just relax. We naturally discipline ourselves to obey directives that we feel are for our good, such as choosing to be disciplined and obey the directive to brush our teeth because it keeps us healthy. We all understand that it requires discipline to be successful in life. It takes discipline to get in and out of bed at the right time, to exercise, to eat right, to limit how much television we watch, etc. Discipline helps us obey or live the laws required for whatever results we seek. Trust and obedience are also quite connected. As we dive into the gateway of obedience, you will see the part that trust plays as well. The gateway of obedience necessitates trusting our ability to receive and interpret the message that comes through intuition when we ask for next steps, or shortcuts, as I like to call them. Trusting the source of the intuition, whether that is my higher self, the universe, God, a passage read in a book, or a mentor, is also vital in successfully completing this gateway. When I was approaching the gateway of obedience, I realized that obedience required me to build a profound sense of integrity in everything I did. Integrity in my word, in my choices, and in my schedule. Part of this includes planning my commitments carefully so that I only commit to those things that are fulfilling to me and inspiring to those around me. Some who are traveling the 7 gateways may already have a level of mastery in this skill of integrity. It was perhaps a skill I was not proficient in, and therefore for me it seemed more challenging. As I developed the skill of obedience, my struggle gave way to surrender. With surrender came a physical transformation that is difficult to put into words, but could possibly be described as complete calm. Imagine a scenario where there is much to be done, but being at peace. The gateway of obedience changed my nature. I'm not frantic. I have untied the tether that held me back long ago, and I accept the role as a respected leader. I'm comfortable in the space of creation where I have all necessary resources, systems, and people who are capable of taking care of all the moving parts. I am calm because I have done this before. When I first accepted the challenge of the gateway of obedience, my first week was a little bizarre, unlike any week of my life before. Although I know that life can sometimes be a storm, for the first time, I was in the eye of the storm. The violent hurricane may have been blowing around me, but I was not aware of it. Making decisions in this calm state was new to me. After a few days, I realized that the feeling I was experiencing was the lack of fear. Fear no longer motivated my choices. I suddenly realized how much I had been unconscious of the constancy of fear in my life. Before I had pinpointed the cause of my surreal state of calm, I had not believed it was possible to live without fear. Acting unconsciously, we depend on fear more than any other emotion to help us decide what to do in life. We decide our career because we are afraid we will not have enough money. We decide to get married because we are afraid to be alone. We decide to eat healthy because we are afraid of a heart attack. We are driven by fear. The reason we second guess so many of our decisions is that our decisions are made from a state of fear. By comparison, imagine making a decision from a state of calm knowing, which had become my new, normal, natural state. Once we learn the lessons of the gateway of obedience, we only do what we feel inspired to do when we need to be doing it. We are habitually in the right place at the right time. Our minds are calm. We see many choices, and we can calmly and deliberately take our pick. We stand in firm, resolved integrity and confidently take the necessary steps to receive what we have asked for. We act out of love for ourselves and those we serve, rather than acting out of fear of loss. Living this way is the most fulfilling and quietly reverent place we can imagine. Until we experience the gateway of obedience, prosperity feels pretty good. Yet good is transcended by a legendary life that is formed out of obedience. The choice to be obedient to the sacred call means we must leave prosperity in search of lasting influence, a quest that is so exponentially more amazing it cannot be described in earthly terms. Every result is dependent upon obeying universal law. Sharing the principle of obedience to universal law, I am reminded of a client who was very resistant to the idea that he was the one who had to change in order for his goals to manifest. My husband and I sat at lunch with him one day, listening as he whined about the universe being unpredictable. If I plant a carrot, I can depend on it sprouting at roughly the time it says on the back of the seed packet. I know about how long it will be before I can eat that carrot. Why can't my goals be that predictable? He challenged. I answered him with a question. Are you as predictable as a carrot? If a carrot had the choice to hibernate inside of itself and never allow itself to be cracked open in the cold ground, pushing through the soil until it finally could break free and feel the warmth of the sun, it would never fulfill its potential. The fact is that we are the only ones who have the choice to change. We are the only pieces of the puzzle that are at choice. That is the gateway of obedience. Obedience is choosing to be as predictable as a carrot. Developing a respect for the irrevocable nature of the laws of the universe is a giant step towards mastering the ability to manifest whatever you choose. Later, you will learn about something I call immovable momentum. Immovable momentum is achieved when you align yourself with the other factors in the equation of creation. Cause and effect is the essence of obedience. We may not consciously realize it, but we all have personal laws that we pay homage to. There are higher laws that apply to every person on the planet, and if we ignore them, we will make our lives miserable. The reverent calm that I described in the previous section is a result of living obediently. The truth is that the universe has physical laws that must be obeyed. For instance, our planet has gravity that pulls us to its surface. If we attempt to ignore the law of gravity, like walking off of our roof or driving off a cliff, we could easily be injured or killed. Another universal law is that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. In the 7 gateways, this means that if we set something in motion, we can expect change. Yet another helpful law to know and understand is that we reap what we sow. In other words, the things we do today, being kind or being angry, working hard or hardly working, tend to result in what we receive tomorrow. These are commonly accepted laws of the universe that must be obeyed. In fact, it is easy to see and understand how and why these laws cannot be broken. Of course, we can spend time, energy, and resources trying to cheat our way through life and circumventing laws. Indeed, we see people who are not generous who seem to receive bounteous windfalls from life. For some of these people, accumulating things is the most important value in their lives. This is simply a result of obeying the law of the harvest, the law that says, what we sow, we also reap. If we sow a desire and actions that produce financial rewards, we must receive them. My attitude towards this system of reaping what I sow and towards others who are focused on different values than my own may even affect my own growth. Acquiring rewards or things, reaping, is only one part of the law of the harvest. Giving and serving, sowing, is the other part. If we try to cheat the system, the law will always win. Why? Because it is a law that everyone must obey. Even God obeyed universal laws to keep our planet abundantly producing after He created it. People who only reap things from life end up with plenty of things, but they also often receive little of love or respect because they are not sending forth what is required to receive that result. They are not obeying the law that says if you are authentically generous, the result is that you experience authentic generosity. On the other hand, those who only sow never reap the rewards of their service. The harvest withers on the vine, and the result is usually sour grapes. The result of being authentically generous is not necessarily financial wealth. Each law is separate and distinct from other laws. Obeying each law has its own reward. They do not intersect or overlap. Many people look to God for their blessings and think if they are good, they will get all good things. Not so. Each result carries with it a law to be obeyed. Traveling through the 7 gateways and experiencing the satisfaction and fulfillment that they produce requires that we adhere to all of the principles involved in every law. We cannot have abundance without gratitude and generosity. There's no shortcut to integrity. There is no workaround to success. There is no substitute for service or love. The more precisely we adhere to the laws and principles involved in achieving whatever goal we have set, the more certain we will be of receiving the desired result. This is the essence of the gateway of obedience. Obeying the laws that govern money and time. In working with my clients and interacting with people in general, I feel that time is elusive for most people. For years, time was my nemesis. I always wished for more time or for time to stand still for me so I could get more done. Of course, that never happened, so I was constantly trying to cram more into my time. But time has laws attached to it. I was trying to cheat the laws by squeezing more out of it than was possible according to physics. We cannot change the universal laws simply by changing our beliefs about them. We can, however, change the beliefs that limit our ability to obey the laws. Time was a law I had deeply desired to comprehend more fully and obey more completely. I sought to become the master of time, or at least the master of my time. I began exploring its possibilities. This search to understand and work in tandem with the law of time came at a period of my life when I was chronically late. I would leave my house at the last possible second so I could cram in one more item on my to-do list. I would push the limits of traffic laws, driving through yellow traffic lights, hoping I wouldn't get caught speeding. all in an effort to squeeze every last second out of the limited amount of time that I perceived I had available in my life. I certainly saw no abundance of time. I completely lacked an accurate sense of the passing of time. Sometimes I would think that only 2 minutes had passed, but when I looked at the clock, I discovered that 20 minutes had gone by. The very first law I discovered about time was that I am only allotted 24 hours in every day. Although time exists in unlimited quantities and there is never an end to time, I only have a certain amount of time, 24 hours, available to me as a mortal woman residing on this planet. Once I had humbly accepted that reality, I chose to embrace it. This resulted in a profound sense of gratitude for having the gift of those 24 hours every day. Rather than selfishly wishing I had more time, I was content and grateful that I was living another day and had important things to accomplish within my 24 hours. This gratitude taught me to see myself as a steward of the time allotted to me. Each of us is a steward of our time, our money, our bodies, our children, etc. As stewards, we must exercise our use of time with wisdom and loving care. We cannot be careless in how we utilize our time, nor can we be greedy, acting as if we will get more than our allotted share of time. We must be content with the time we have and know that 24 hours each day is enough to accomplish our tasks and goals. It must be, or we would have received more. As I pondered more about time, I recognized that the most powerful, beautiful, wealthy, generous, successful people in the world also have only 24 hours in a day, the same as every other human. When it came to time, I had exactly the same resources as a billionaire. I decided to try using my time the same way a billionaire does. I reasoned that by coupling my time with knowledge and skill, just like a billionaire does, I could create and receive anything, even $1 billion, if I'm willing to do as a billionaire does. I studied the laws that govern time and began to comprehend its power and predictability. I learned that time is a resource, just as money is a resource, and that the same laws that apply to time apply to money. I reasoned that the laws of time are really the laws of infinite resources. I learned to obey the laws associated with time, and in the process, time became my friend. Friends support and help each other. I committed to honor the time that I was allotted and treat it as a friend and loyal servant, rather than an enemy with whom I was constantly at war. Try this experiment. Listen how you talk about these infinite resources. Interchange the word friend in place of money or time. See if you would want to hang around friends like you. Or, if you're like me, you may discover that you are very judgmental of your money and time friends, and that you take more than you give. I have found that when it comes to immovable laws and principles, I am the one who gets to change to strengthen the relationship. Since time and money are not dissimilar, practicing more obedience with money was a natural next phase to my newly acquired wisdom. I wanted to better understand the nature of money and its role and utility in our lives. When I took my first baby steps on the quest to master the laws of money, I had to admit that I had little understanding of it. I didn't know why money went to some people but not to others. I knew that it didn't come to me as much as I would want it to. So I had to learn how to invite it into my life. It was much like deciding to invite more friends into my life. The first thing I decided to do was change my relationship with money. If you think that seeking a friendly relationship with money sounds a little strange, think about the more common result of having a bad relationship with money. The principles of money are pretty strict. Fail to obey them, and money will be scarce. Just as a criminal who will not obey the law of the land is locked away from society, those who do not obey the laws of commanding their resources will become separated from them. I wanted a good relationship with money, so I sought answers on how to develop a good relationship. Over time, my feelings about money became very close to my feelings about time. I felt I had a stewardship over the money that came to me. I loved to spend time with my friends, and they loved to spend time with me in return. I wanted money to enjoy spending time with me, so I changed my attitude and the words I spoke and even thought about money. And soon we were comfy with each other as we hung out more. Observe some of the language I changed that created a more positive environment for my resources of money and time to feel welcome. For instance, I now give time to things I feel are important rather than taking time for them. I now give money to my investments rather than making money for my investments. To take something from someone or to make someone do something does not feel friendly or abundant to me. The language we speak and energy we radiate about money and time invites the universe to respond in a similar way. The universe will bring us positive results with time and money if we speak positively, and it will bring us negative results if our energy towards time and money are likewise negative. I would guess that most people simply are unaware of the language they are using to speak results into existence. Money, like time and all other things that we seek, have laws attached to them, and the more closely we adhere to those laws, the better will be the results that naturally are a byproduct of our efforts. This book is not meant to teach you all the laws on which every desirable result is predicated. We are promised in the Bible, in Matthew 7:7, that if we seek, we will find what we seek. The highest truths are readily available and waiting for us to discover if we seek them. There's much to learn about commanding resources. I'm still discovering the language and energy associated with this subject. My own personal study has included mentoring with 3 billionaires who surround themselves with multi-billionaires. I am multiplying the effect of one mentor by tapping into their mentors through them. This is called proximity of power. I am consciously putting myself in proximity of a wealth of knowledge about wealth. We become like the 5 people we most often surround ourselves with. I choose to have a working knowledge of orchestrating the resources that enable me to serve at the highest level possible. So I have developed relationships with people who can offer wisdom that I can trust. I perpetuate that proximity of power by dedicating a portion of my private and group mentoring courses to helping my clients understand and implement this principle of speaking the language and becoming friends with resources. My highest mentor is God. He has a lot to say about commanding resources in stories that his servants, the prophets, have recorded in the scriptures. You will find, if you choose to walk more closely with me, that I value true principles that withstand time. The highest truths do not change because the laws of the universe do not change. My daily GPS process is the key to gaining the wisdom of the universe, breaking through all limiting beliefs surrounding any subject, including money and time. You can receive a video and PDF outline of this process simply for the asking by going to my website, wylenebenson.com/contact/ and specifying that you would like the video called Daily GPS, the One Critical Habit for Success. I also have an inexpensive online course on my website called The Loaves and Fishes Experiment. In this succinct study, I teach the 7 principles laid out in the Bible stories of Jesus feeding thousands with a few loaves and fishes. I offer several online courses and coaching packages to help you implement the principles you are learning here. The more closely you adhere to the laws and principles associated with the resources you desire to access, the more efficient and predictable your results will be. Money and time are just 2 things we desire to have a better relationship with. Every worthwhile endeavor has a law that the result is predicated on. Discover the law, obey it, and the result must manifest. Some final words about obedience. I hope that you have learned that obedience is very different than grudgingly falling in line or blindly following a principle without knowing why. Obedience is a desire to know, a desire to seek, and a willing exploration of the possibilities of results that obedience to the laws produce. Obedience is proactive and requires trusting in your own intuition. It is actively pursuing understanding and then testing what you have learned. When truth resonates in your heart and you take courage to walk through the gateway of obedience, you will begin reaping the rewards of choosing to obey the laws. The result of the law must follow. This is a truth that never changes. The gateway of obedience is choosing to align with the law because you desire to walk the easiest path. The universe has to comply with your desires when you follow the laws that produce that desire. To make this simple and clear, I have written the formula for reaping the rewards of obedience below. When you desire to become proficient in an area, follow these steps. Step 1. Ask deliberate questions in your daily GPS practice and seek information from mentors and resources that you trust are knowledgeable. Step 2. Break through all your limiting beliefs about the law and receiving the result of obeying it. Step 3. Take bold, courageous action immediately, obeying exactly the inspired action step you received. Trust your answer and step out in faith. Faith-filled action creates evidence that strengthens your resolve to continue being obedient. Step 4. Gain a personal understanding of the laws by continuing to ask, learn, tweak until you have mastered the law and have made a habit of obedience to it. When you follow this formula, the universe must obey and bring to you the result according to the law. The result is always the byproduct of obedience to the law. We do not get the result by focusing on the result. We get the result by focusing on the law. Just as one does not lose weight by being a healthy weight, one loses weight by being obedient to the laws that govern healthy weight. I would like to end this section on obedience by sharing a very personal and vulnerable time when I was asking for understanding of the laws that produce and maintain wealth. I had learned a lot about what it means to have an abundant mindset, and I had broken through a whole bunch of limiting beliefs around wealth. Still, I saw myself going down the road of borrowing to take care of today's obligations. I love my dad for what he taught me about hard work and integrity. He regularly commented that he was behind on his work and behind on payments. I could empathize with what he had gone through in his business and personal life. And one day I said, "Enough. I want to know what I'm missing." Dad was in abundance. He was giving in a way that paid him immediately. He loved his work and he was a master at his craft. So why didn't he have the abundance that is supposed to follow giving in a way that served him? The answer that came was that he was always being pushed by poverty. Poverty is based in fear, fear of not having enough. Sometimes I felt that he begrudged giving money to his family. It was like taking money from his hard work. I never heard him actually say this, but there may have been an underlying thought of, "It's mine. I worked hard for this." I know I have felt similarly when I resisted giving money to a credit card company when I know most of it was going toward interest. My dad passed away over a decade ago, and he never reached the point of being fulfilled and complete. He never achieved the level that he could let go of working for money and simply work for the love of his work. What is it all for if you can't enjoy it? My dad was working to survive. He never became self-actualized. Even some of the wealthy people I know are still driven by survival. Over several days of asking questions with a sincere desire to know what my dad missed and what I was still missing, here's what I learned. Being pushed by love is different than being pushed by poverty. I'll explain what I mean. When we are selfishly focused on our own survival, we are separate from the world. We cannot reach out and we cannot see the needs of others. Our own needs are too oppressing. When we are selfishly focused on our own growth for the purpose of being our best, we naturally want others to come with us. In this way, we are motivated by love for ourselves. Where the push of poverty creates urgency to survive, the push of significance creates urgency to become the best we can be. There's no fear. We are open to invite others along. Rather than working for the purpose of fulfilling a responsibility or avoiding pain, we can share freely of the fruits of our labor. We have confidence in the flow and that it could never dry up. Your rite of passage through the gateway of obedience. How aligned are you with obedience? Evaluate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 is completely aligned. Number 1, I choose to continue growing beyond my own prosperity. I am willing to proactively ask my higher power to show me my weaknesses so that they may become strengths. Number 2, I am driven to seek and discover the laws that govern the result I desire. I admit I don't know it all. I am open to learning from mentors, ancient writings that have stood the test of time, and my own private divine revelations. Number 3, I am motivated by love for myself, God, and my fellow man. I have stepped beyond fear, so I never hesitate to take immediate, obedient action on my inspired next steps. I am doing it for me, and I invite others to do it for them. I radiate my light and celebrate my growth openly so that others are inspired to find their own source of motivation. Number 4, I know that with anything I choose to invite into my life, I am the variable in the equation. My results are predictable because I choose to be predictable. I am creating in tandem with the universal laws and truths that produce the results I desire. I focus on obedience to the laws and inspired shortcuts, and the result manifests. Milepost 3, Gateway 6, the Gateway of Humility. The counterfeit. I am nothing. I am worthless. I don't deserve success. I deserve the circumstances I am in, and I rely on the pity and generosity of God and others for anything new that I receive. The truth. I recognize and express gratitude for the source of everything I am and have. I am teachable because I know if I am still living, I am growing. I notice my humanness and I embrace my capacity for greatness. I seek every way possible to close the gap in an effort to be in perfect integrity with the best that I am capable of. I do my part and rely on the feedback from trusted mentors and God to continue to improve. Entering the Gateway of Humility. Have you ever known someone who achieved great things in their lives and then began to flaunt their success? I have. It is an interesting thing to witness. The power of their message is diminished. It becomes hollow, outshined by ego. When they begin to worship their own knowledge, they lose their ability to be tutored. One of my mentors told me that when I cease to be the student, I cease to be the mentor. Fame can be a razor's edge. On the one side is legendary influence for good. On the other side is a graveyard of disenchanted followers. We also know people who remained humble in the midst of grand success. For them, fame is not so much a razor's edge, but a straight and narrow path that they choose not to veer from. Remaining pure and true, regardless of small or grand victories, depends on one's ability to remain humble. The Gateway of Humility enables us to create a tangible tie between ourselves, God, and everyone else on earth. It qualifies us to tune in to a higher power than ourselves. It cultivates a deeper, almost soul-to-soul connection with those whom we serve. Our personal Gateway of Humility acknowledges our dependence on our own intuition from that higher source and our dependence on others who play various roles for us, the roles of mentor, student, brother, friend, resource, etc. Once we walk through the gateway of obedience, we essentially are submitting to the laws that govern our world. We begin to recognize our place as a creator within our own personal universe. We see the necessity of being a willing student and a mentor to others by sharing what we have learned. We are giving and receiving, teaching and learning, beginning and finishing. We have attained the skill of finding prosperity while continuing the cycle and flow of abundance. When the desire for growth arises within us, we are obedient to the call and orchestrate new and grander ambitions. The Gateway of Humility follows the Gateway of Obedience for a logical reason. In the Gateway of Obedience, we shorten the gestation time of all our goals and desires and are able to manifest in the most efficient way possible. We learn to tap into powers and abilities beyond our own finite physical and psychological human abilities. However, there is a base human desire that awakens when a superhuman gift is detected within. That desire is to be recognized for the achievement. Perhaps you can begin to see the razor's edge. It is good to achieve. It is good to be recognized for our achievements. But the weakness of mortals is that they tend to get cocky and think they manifested their achievement with their own power. Nothing could be further from the truth. Without the physical laws of creation, without the people that are drawn to us because of the vibration we are sending out, without the inspiration we receive and follow every day from a higher source of knowledge, we are nothing. Humility is the realization that most great thoughts and inspiration already exist and originate outside of ourselves. Truth is truth. It was already hanging in the atmosphere when we sat down to meditate. I can give myself credit for taking the time to ask, and I can be grateful that there was something there for me to receive. Since it never was mine to begin with, I am just borrowing the truth, thought, or inspiration for a moment to help me create what I desire. That truth, though, or inspiration, is still out there for others even as we grab it for our own. Again, abundance dictates that there is always enough and resources are always available, and that includes information, truth, and ideas. To continue the flow of abundance, I pay what I have learned forward. I give it freely and easily because I know it was never mine exclusively. Truth already existed in the free creative space. There are many counterfeits to authentic humility. We will address those a little later in this chapter. However, there may be one big question in your mind. If all knowledge and truth is free and should be freely paid forward, is it okay to get paid for the ideas you pass along to others? There are some people who have reached the state of independent wealth who choose to live an altruistic life filled with service, giving freely of the knowledge and wealth they have attained. We live in a world where money is the form of value that is readily given and accepted everywhere for value received. Yes, when you take an idea that you are inspired with and make it your own, you should receive value in return. Being humble does not mean being poor. To be humble, my goal is to claim my place within the flow of knowledge and inspiration. I also need to recognize the source of the flow. Finding my place within the flow and realizing I am not the beginning nor am I the end is the essence of the gateway of humility. Part of being in this constant flow of inspiration is accepting my responsibility and duty to be my best for the next generation. I am laying the groundwork for those who will stand on the shoulders of my accomplishments 50 or 100 years from now. There are two principles that help us understand this concept of humility better. They are, number one, I see my smallness in the big picture. Number two, I acknowledge my vital role in the big picture. Our smallness in the big picture. Have you ever looked down from an airplane and seen the forest, rivers, and highways below and realized just how small humans are in relation to the entire world? In the whole spectrum of the expanse of space, humans are tiny little creatures living on a tiny little planet in an obscure little corner of the universe. I am one of more than 100 billion humans that have lived on this planet. In my own little world, I may have some influence and exercise some power over my life, but in the big picture, I may feel truly small and inconsequential. What's more, everything I have and everything that I can acquire is given as a gift from sources that are so much more significant than I may ever become in my lifetime. For instance, I utilize the internet every day. I have no idea if my contributions to the world will even be a speck in comparison to the far-reaching influence this one invention has on mankind. No matter where we are in life or how far we've come personally on our journey to self-actualization, we must recognize and accept that we are totally dependent on the gifts and laws of the universe and the contributions of others. The efforts of those who labored before us to create the world in which we currently live are significant to what we currently enjoy. This applies also to those who live within our immediate vicinity in our own community right now, and it applies to all those who will live after us. As we comprehend our own nothingness in the arc of eternity, the antithesis is also true that we are indispensable to the continuance of humankind. Today, as I write this chapter, SpaceX launched the Falcon Heavy rocket into orbit. I was awestruck by the webinar coverage, the clarity of the photography, the precision of the two rocket boosters returning to Earth in perfect synchronization. I remember clearly in 1969 sitting cross-legged on the floor at my grandparents' home in Utah, right in front of the big TV that was more like a piece of furniture than a television. Black and white, fuzzy images of the Apollo 11 lunar landing are still etched in my mind. And then Neil Armstrong's infamous statement, heard loud and clear through static, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." In 1969, the underlying reason for the space race was fear. The untested expanse of space held fear for the astronauts and the engineers who sent them into orbit. There was a different energy with the launch of Falcon Heavy. As I witnessed the Falcon Heavy countdown, ignition, liftoff, and subsequent showman-style ejection of the Tesla with Starman chilling in his spacesuit, there was a giddy excitement in the air, on site at NASA's Kennedy Space Center and across the nation. Advancement in computer technology and GPS guidance systems have created precision predictability where 50 years ago, slide rules and teletype machines left holes that had to be filled in with educated guesses. Today, the energy was that of accomplishment, of confidence, and that could not have been possible without the pioneering of the early days of the space age. Is there any doubt that we are all connected? Our vital role in the big picture. We are all connected. We are connected to something bigger than ourselves, even bigger than our dreams. When we walk the gateway of humility, we make the choice to give up our self-centered lives in favor of a life of service out of love for all the human race. Remember, that is why we chose to discover the gateway of obedience by stepping out of a comfortable place of prosperity. Although we are still at choice, obedience literally is choosing to give up our choice. Just as a child trusts a loving parent, we give up control in order to allow ourselves to be led. If the inspired next step is to talk to a stranger, that's what we do. If the inspired next step is to invest in a real estate property, that's what we do. If the inspired next step is to read a book, that's what we do. We become an obedient servant of our inspired next steps, not because we're a slave to a master, bound by contract, obligation, or force. It is because we love ourselves so much that we know by following the inspired instruction to the letter, our lives will be more joyful and fulfilled. If there is a God, and I have plenty of evidence that supports the idea that there is, He is like that loving parent whose only reason for denying the child freedom to play in the street is to give the child freedom to live another day. And although the child doesn't always understand the instruction, he can obey because he trusts his parent. Or he can rebel in the name of control and independence and possibly find a harder path. The choice to give up choice in favor of obedience requires complete trust. This is the gateway of humility. The choice of maintaining control is steeped in doubt and mistrust in anything or anyone other than ourselves. This is the ego path, and it is the path of struggle. We deny ourselves the freedom and clarity of seeing beyond what we already know when we cannot trust the wisdom encapsulated in the experiences of others. Our own logic and past experience is very limited. We are in essence rebelling against our own easier life. In choosing to be guided one step at a time, we trade in the pride of doing it all ourselves and attempting to control the outcome for a legacy of a life created with and for the benefit of others. There are two parts to humility. Definitely, when we let go of control and ask for step-by-step instructions, we are seeing our smallness in relation to the big picture. But that is only half of the formula. The other piece, recognizing our role in something bigger than ourselves, is just as key. We can accept our reliance on and connection with all people and the divine. However, we can also clearly see that we exist in the great plan of abundance, and even that we are a crucial part in perpetuating it. I am a resource to others, so when I'm prompted to do something, especially something that will improve the life of another, I do it without question or regard to personal cost. This quick action stems from a peaceful knowledge that our inspiration has superior understanding to our limited view and will be beneficial to others and ourselves. In the beginning, these actions may need to be motivated by faith. but soon the evidence will show that inspired obedience brings positive results. There are those who walk through the world saying, "I'm nothing. I could never do that. That's beyond me. I'm not good enough." Although there may be some perceived humility in such an outlook, it is not the type of humility that leads to any of the benefits from taking the gateway of humility. In fact, this view of humility is more like martyrdom. It is a counterfeit. It will not lead us through the gateway of humility, but cuts us off from the benefits found on the other side. The authentic form of humility is more relative to someone who knows everything is accessible at all times and yet only moves when inspired to. A humble person is wealthy in all aspects of the word and is at peace with what is currently within their stewardship, knowing at any moment they may feel inspired to shift the wealth. Romans 8:16 through 17 declares that we are heirs with Christ. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of God, and if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ. To the extent we are attuned to the divinity within us is the extent to which we deserve all that the Father has to bequeath to us. My belief is that we don't have to die to receive these blessings. My belief is that we have access to our inheritance now. Our recognition that we possibly have not yet earned these good things is part of the gateway of humility, but is discussed in more detail in the gateway of equity in the next chapter. Our acceptance of the gifts we already possess and asking that we be magnified through our gifts is part of the gateway of humility. The lesson is not that we deserve everything because of our own efforts or just because of our divine birthright. Instead, the lesson is that we are a child of the divine, and by simple virtue of our parentage, we are heirs to all our Father has. As we come to trust and allow ourselves to be led as a child, we have claim on whatever is needed in that moment to be obedient and fulfill the instructions of a loving Father who desires to prepare us to eventually receive our full inheritance. The gateway of humility comes in our recognition that everything is a gift for which we are grateful. As a child of the divine, we have inherited many gifts and characteristics. In accepting these gifts and magnifying them the best we can, the divine endows us with trust that we will use our gifts and use them to help others discover their gifts. Such a trust brings, and may I say even requires, great humility. We also have evidence that because we have one gift, there may be other gifts to be asked for and received. As we receive more and more gifts, we raise ourselves from a poverty and survival mindset, thinking and acting as if we are a servant in our Father's house, to a mindset of abundance, believing that we are a son or daughter of a king. The Bible is filled with prophets proclaiming this one principle, that you and I are brothers and sisters, that we descended from the same parents who in the beginning were created by a loving Father in heaven. One of my favorite passages is from the New Testament. For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. For ye have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but ye have received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together. That's Romans 8:14 through 17. According to these sacred words, we are adopted into the family of God simply by allowing ourselves to be led by the Spirit of God. Ultimately, humility is acknowledging that we are great, we are divine by nature, and because we are great, we have the responsibility to use that greatness to further the evolution of humanity. The motivation is not obligation, but love for ourselves, for we know that all humanity is connected in one complete circle. To withhold from one is to withhold from oneself. To bless one is to bless oneself. Recognizing humility's counterfeits. There is an authentic and a counterfeit way to look at all things. Just as a counterfeit $20 bill looks very much like an authentic $20 bill, on closer inspection, it is easy to recognize the truth from the reproduction. For example, the counterfeits of being introspective could be identified as shy, awkward in social settings, a loner. Those are negative and usually inaccurate. Authentic descriptions that usually more perfectly describe the internal reality of someone who is introspective might be intuitive, contemplative, having the gift of discernment. Everything has a counterfeit. Humility is no exception. One of humility's counterfeits is believing that I am nothing, so I can do nothing. Jesus was born in, quote, humble circumstances, and we never hear of him having great monetary wealth. However, he did amazing things and had profound influence. If you doubt your ability or your worth, go back and reread The Gateway of Faith, Abundance, and Charity. Sometimes we awaken to the fact that what we have is not enough, and to some extent, who we are is not enough because we are not fully living at our potential. There is humility in this perception of noticing the gap between who we are currently and who we are capable of becoming, but for many, it is more like judgment and self-loathing. That is a counterfeit perception. Some people believe they shouldn't be paid well, or that if they are paid well, it means they're not humble. If you have limiting beliefs about this, go back and reread The Gateways of Abundance and Charity. Do your permission process on your limiting beliefs in this area, and you will find that it is not an absolute truth that you must be poor to be humble. Another counterfeit definition of humility is people-pleasing, aka doormat, martyr, passive-aggressive. Some people learned early in life that they got praise when they did what someone wanted them to do, or perhaps punished if they were not agreeable. It became a survival technique to do what they were told and either make the person feel guilty or slink inside and silently suffer. To try to figure out what other people want all the time is madness. Most of the time we get it wrong and it backfires. And living this way doesn't make us humble, it diminishes us to non-existence. Each of us is a unique individual with unique opinions and ideas. To be anything else is inauthenticity and the epitome of being out of integrity. People-pleasing is the antithesis of arrogance. Both are the furthest from humility that we could be. Claiming my power while believing that I alone create my own success is counterfeit glory. It will never bring fulfillment and happiness because it is a razor's edge. If I claim that I achieved my success alone, I must also claim my failings. Either way, I am alone. When I invite others into my success, as in the Gateway of Charity, I am never alone. So authentic humility invites others in. Counterfeit humility excludes others. The Gateway of Charity knows there are others who are standing at the ready to support our cause, not because we can't do it ourselves, but because it is part of their passion and purpose to support us with their unique talents and abilities. It is super humbling when I learn of someone who desires to be a part of my creation, and it takes authentic humility to allow them in. Humility is recognizing those who are willing to teach us and knowing that the best and most efficient way to happiness is to invite them in as quickly as possible. Humility is not submission, although it seems that we must be humble enough to become obedient. It is more a conscious choice to align with the laws of the universe than to submit to them. So if the Gateway of Humility at its purest is inviting others into our creation, what does that look like? Surrender to partnership. The Gateway of Humility is partnership. Partnerships with others and with God. It is choosing to give credibility to something outside of our own ego. When we step into the unknown, we are focused on the outcome. It helps to see the outcome to motivate us to move away from a comfortable life to something more meaningful that takes us outside of ourselves. As you learned in the Gateway of Obedience, we move with total commitment when we receive an inspired thought from outside ourselves. We don't usually say, I think I will go save the world today. That idea usually comes as a divine prompt. When we choose to move through the Gateway of Humility, our mission is a partnership with no strings attached. We may have a vision of what the outcome should look like, but we are not attached to that vision. We know what we want, but are completely open to how it comes to us. We continually ask, "What's next?" Then listen. We work in tandem with our partners, and when it comes, we follow the directive perfectly. Your rite of passage through the gateway of humility. How aligned are you with humility? Evaluate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 is completely aligned. Number 1, I am in awe of how small I seem in relation to the big picture, and I also acknowledge my key significance in the grand design of humanity. Number 2, I have a pure view of my part in my success. I acknowledge my own gifts and dedication, and I feel deep gratitude for the contributions of others, past, present, and future. I know that my success is a team effort. Number 3, I accurately understand what it means to be humble. I am neither egotistical nor am I a martyr. I am a rightful heir to the treasures of the universe. I hold myself to the standard of uprightness that is benefiting my royal heritage. Number 4, I give up control in order to have the most control. I choose the vision, and then I am open to how it unfolds.